Podstock.
Hey everybody, I'm back. It's me. I don't think I missed anything over those last few games that I was out of the country for. Nothing at all. Nothing interesting happened in the last 3 games, right?
They didn't even play the games. They were waiting for you to return to
They
watch
were waiting
them.
for me to, yeah, well, so I did come back and like power watched. I actually saw the Eagles game because I was in Texas and when it was on and I was able to watch that. That was a great game. I got yelled at for cheering at the very end. Uh my in-laws were all there and I got very excited with that last play and I got in trouble. But
Were
that's
you out
fine.
in the Houston suburbs doing this?
Yes. Yeah.
You didn't even bother to call me.
I was there for one day to see my family and
You're also
then
probably 50 miles away from where I am.
that's true.
So.
Yes. Well, I've told you where they live. They
Yeah,
are
don't say
literally
it.
50
Yeah,
miles away.
we're a long way away. I'm just teasing you.
Yeah. Yeah. It is amazing. So for those who don't know, I flew to New Zealand for like 2 weeks. That's
Oh,
where
they
I
know.
was.
If they're listening
Okay.
to us, they know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Doing nerd stuff, Lord of the Rings stuff,
You're good at
LARPing.
nerdy stuff.
I'm very good at nerdy stuff. That's why I have a podcast.
This is pretty. The fact that we're doing this is pretty nerdy. The
It
fact that
is.
I sit around for hours doing statistical analysis of football when I'm not getting paid for it in and of itself is very nerdy.
Oh, absolutely. We're nerds. We just accept it. Nerds have all the power these days, and we're nerds.
That is so true.
It is.
Minus the power.
Well, yes, we're just nerds without power. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's back, and it's an extended version of the show. Usually, right now, I'm doing mock drafts, and I'm, looking at the future, and we're firing
Possible new
coaches.
head coaches.
We're doing like
Yeah.
summaries of the season.
Right,
Yep.
right. Season recap episode, but not really today because this is the best Washington team that we've seen in how long ago was 1991?
1991.
33 years?
Yeah.
Am I doing the
33
math
years
right?
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I was a baby. I was like 8, 9. It's been a long time, folks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think people who are not Washington fans don't really have an accurate viewpoint of just how much despair has been in this organization over those
Right.
years.
And I think there's a lot of younger fans that just really don't truly appreciate. I mean, they appreciate a winning season like this, but they don't really truly appreciate what they're watching because of where they fell from.
Yes.
There was a real bad taste in our mouths
Mhm.
watching what happened. And then coming a 12-5 season, imagine if this team actually had a defense and a good running back. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's from my perspective, it's really sad that it's not the Redskins and it's this
Sure.
expansion team.
Sure.
And, I don't have the same adoration for this team as I did the Redskins.
Right.
And so it's a bit bittersweet for me, to be
Well,
honest.
see, the one, Steve, I actually thought about that before. And the one thing about this team that I think that you deserve, like I deserve, and amongst all us older fans, whether you want to cheer for the Commander's name or not, that's irrelevant right now, is the fact that I think you deserve to cheer for Jaden Daniels and what we have in the front office, what we haven't seen in decades.
And
That
you-
right
you-
there, you
I'll
can
give
at
you-
least.
It's
you-
not
you-
the same franchise, though.
No, it's
It's
not
not.
the same franchise, but you can at least still appreciate what you
Oh, I
see.
can have. Oh, of course.
You know what I mean? Absolutely.
I wouldn't do
And I
the
think
show
you
if I
deserve
didn't.
that opportunity to appreciate that.
I mean, I wouldn't still be doing this show if I didn't appreciate
Sure.
it. I just mean, I've never wanted to lie to you guys out there, and
Right.
I'm not the same fan I was. I enjoy talking about football and all of that, and Jaden Daniels is really fun to watch, but it is not the Redskins.
It's
Right.
not. And
No.
Steve, Dave came at it from a positive. Let me give you the Steve point of view that I think
Oh,
you'll appreciate.
The more negative one that's really rolling through my head. See if you can.
Yes.
There
hit
we go.
Dan Snyder doesn't get to enjoy any of it.
it.
How's
Now,
that
see, that's
for?
the best part of it.
How's
That's
that
like,
for?
good.
that's like
That
the
is good.
cherry on top right there.
It's driving him crazy because the first year he left,
Right.
boom, all of a
Yeah,
sudden,
Yep. The first year he's truly
first whole
gone,
season,
they do
they're-
better than he ever did. And
That makes me happy.
and they got the RFK land and all this fun stuff happens as soon as he's gone.
They don't have the RFK.
Well,
land.
you know what I mean.
No, you need
There's
to be
been
clear.
more progress
Talking
in that
to a real estate
area
attorney here.
than he
They-
ever would have gotten
District
it.
of Columbia has the land.
Right. It just so happens that the entire ownership group was there at the signing of the bill too.
Were they?
I still
Yes.
ultimately think that that's just going to be a perfect bargaining chip to go back to Maryland and say,
That's 100%.
give us more
true.
funding, give us
Oh, I'm
more funding,
sure.
and we'll stay.
I'm
Or
sure.
Virginia.
Or Virginia,
probably
yeah.
Maryland.
Doing
Politically, probably
Virginia's
Maryland.
done. Yeah, Maryland's where it's gonna end up if it's
Because
not in DC.
I think some fans and even the local media are getting real hyped and excited about it, but they have to understand Harris got done having a stadium approved in Philadelphia, right by Chinatown, with zero city funding. He had to get all that funding himself. He is absolutely going to look to get as much funding as possible. And this bill in D.C. says no funding through taxpayers, nothing, which is the right thing to do.
No. What it
No
says
federal
is
funding.
no federal funding. So the government, usually when they do, we need to move on, but usually when
we're not going to talk about this
municipalities
Right.
and stuff do stadiums, they issue public bonds. They raise it through public bond sales and then excise tax like cigarettes and car rentals and stuff. DC could do that, but my point from the beginning is they don't nearly have the ability to do that to the same extent as the entire state of Maryland or Virginia does. And
Right,
it makes
right.
it very difficult. And they're still paying off Nat Stadium on top of that because you got to pay bonds back. It's not free.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about all that stuff once we actually finally hit an
Sure.
off season. Who knows when that'll be? It could be next week. It could be, I don't know, 4 weeks from now. Who knows? A boy
It's
can dream.
Theoretically possible, sure.
A boy can dream. Well, anyway, so let's talk about. I'm not going to talk about all the games I missed because that would be insane. But let's talk about this Cowboys game. I was supposed to watch this one, but I was stuck on an aircraft for 20 hours, and so that was fun. Because Steve, you know about the storms that were coming through Houston, or during that.
Yeah, but
period.
see, I don't watch the news, and so when a storm pops up, it's always news to me.
Yeah, but that was you guys had a nice storm there that forced me to land in Austin and sit on the tarmac for 4 hours, which was
got caught in that, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Nothing like a 14-hour flight becoming nearly a 20-hour flight. Anyway, that Cowboys game, interesting game. Jaden Daniels did not look good, let's be honest.
It was his worst game.
It might have been his worst game. They pulled him. I think that was the right call. What are you really playing for in the end?
Well, I mean, they pulled him because theoretically he had a sore leg.
Right.
Whether or not that's true or not, who knows?
I think let's take them at their word that his leg was sore. Even it was the right call to pull him because you're already in the playoffs.
I would have rather
that
lost
much.
the game than have him
risk him. Yeah.
Well, actually, I honestly think it was a sore leg because I don't know if you recall that one tackle he had in that Atlanta game. I mean, he was
looked like he was going to tear his ACL.
I nearly cried when I saw that at first. And
that Gumby leg moment,
yes,
that was brutal.
So I wouldn't be surprised it was stemmed off of that a bit.
Possible. I was shocked he didn't tear a knee ligament in that. But that's Atlanta. So let me hear real quick. Yep. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this game because frankly there's more important things to talk about. So let's just run through this. And stats. Daniels was 6 for 12, 38 yards, no touches, no interception, quarterback rating of 18.6. Marcus Mariota came in the third quarter, played the second half, went 15 for 18, 161 yards, 2 touchdowns, quarterback rating of 96.4. Mariota was the leading rusher, 5 for 56. The running backs were Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson. They were combined for 8 for 22, which is pathetic. Yep. Leading receivers, Terry McLaurin.
Hold on. Steve, you skipped over. How many yards did Daniel rush for again?
Oh, Jaden Daniels, 27 yards.
So despite the fact that he only was in like a half of the game, he outran the running.
He outran and Mariota was, had everybody beat.
Yeah. He had two very nice runs.
Yeah, Olamide Zaccheaus was 2 for 51. Leading tackle was Jeremy Chin, 13 tackles. Mike Sandersill was 10. Goes down from there. Tressway had 5 punts for 238 yards. Do we care about the Cowboys stats?
Meh.
I don't think so.
Here's
my quick summary of this game. So Washington looked terrible. They probably should have lost. If Dallas had been a better team, like and shown any level of competence in the red zone, Washington would have lost this game. They were in the red zone 5 times. They really hurt themselves more than they did Or then they were stopped by Washington for at least about 3 of those.
Right.
They got really lucky. And they got really lucky that Mariota came in and looked so good. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. They got the win. That's all that counts. But they need to forget about this game. That's my thought.
This is a burn the tape game.
Yes.
I will say I'm happy to see Mariota plays well.
He's a perfect backup for
He's a fantastic backup for Jayden Daniels. The whole thing that happened with the Falcons game with him like kind of motivating Daniels on that final drive, that also is like exactly what you want your veteran backup quarterback to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that, Steve, where like he kind of gave Jayden Daniels a pep talk on the last drive.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was just some kind of like calm down, catch your breath, you have more talent, go win this kind of thing.
Well, here's my point is, like, if you look at Philadelphia,
right?
Jalen Hurts, it starts with a K. Who the heck is the?
It's Tiny Hands from Pittsburgh. I can't remember his name all of a sudden. The guy who was the Pittsburgh quarterback.
Yeah, the name is escaping me. Yeah. But point is,
Kenny Pickett. Yeah, Pickett.
Kenny
Tiny
Pickett.
Hands.
Thank you. Kenny Pickett is nothing like Jalen Hurts at all. And so the offense has to change. Marcus Mariota is an older version of Jayden Daniels in many respects. So they can kind of do the same thing. Mariota led the team in rushing. Mm-hmm. So a topic for another day, but they really need to do what they can do to keep him around, Mariota around, I think.
Absolutely. I think so too. And they need to do something about the running game, but that's also for next season at this point.
It's for right now, but there's nothing
there's nothing they can do right now. That's the problem.
This game had an eerie feeling of when Sam Howell started his first game, last game of the year against Dallas, when Dallas was going in for playoff positioning.
Right.
And we just wound up, Dallas it almost looked like Dallas was kind of looking past us, but still trying to win the game at the same time, and they were making mistakes. And we just took advantage of our opportunities and wound up winning that game. Thought for sure that's exactly where the game was headed.
If Dallas hadn't been so incompetent, that would have happened.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, and at the same time, it's not like Dallas made a ton of mistakes. They just underperformed all across the board. Yeah.
You don't get in the red zone 5 times and come away with 4 field goals when you're a competent NFL team.
Right. Unless you're Washington versus the Giants and you come away with, what was that? 5 field goals or whatever?
Yeah, that's true.
6.
That's an outlier, though.
Yeah. And win a game somehow. Yeah. But yeah, look, this one, it was a win. You're happy it's a win, I guess, in the end. But you burned the tape. Let's get ready for this playoff push and see. I mean, look, this team is now playing with so much house money. We were closer to predicting a complete flip of the season than what it was. Like, 5-12 was more realistic, I think.
We were totally wrong about
absolutely.
All of us were,
Yeah, all of us were. Even me, the most optimistic one, had them at like 7-9. So.
Everybody did. You weren't alone. Yeah, we weren't alone.
Right.
I think I was the worst for the group. I think I had like 5 or 6 wins.
I was in that range too. I can't remember what.
I think you both had 6.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Which
wrong, very wrong.
Yep, we were wrong, and I love being wrong when this happens. So I'm not going to really be upset about my wrongness. But yeah, well, all right. So defensively, did you guys see anything defensively that made you happy here? Because
no,
nothing.
Not really. No, I mean Dallas has overperformed.
Right.
In summary, simultaneously under and overperformed in the same game. They haven't been a good team all year. They were bad in the red zone. All the same, they they held up Washington's offense down.
Yeah.
Throughout the game in a way that, no other team really has.
I wonder if it's a familiarity thing between McCarthy and Quinn a little bit. I wonder if that plays into.
The score was 3-6 at halftime, 6-3.
Yeah.
I also chalk this game up. It's just it never seems to matter how good or how bad the Cowboys are. This team just can never seem to ever dominate this team in any way whatsoever, regardless of how good or bad Washington is. It just never seems. I'm just like, you know what? I just chalk up as another game against the Cowboys. Frustrating. They should have handled them. They didn't. But you know what? But see, that's what crazy is. They could go out the following week against a team like the freaking Chiefs, and they'll hang with them for a little bit, back and forth, scoring touchdown left and right. But the Chiefs pull away at the end. Like, where was his offense? But the Cowboys, they can't do that.
No,
it blows my mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we just give game balls, because I think talking about the playoffs is way more interesting and important.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly. Yeah, we don't need to.
Let's move forward. And this is the shortest game summary I think we've done all season. All right. So game balls. Who you guys got?
I got Mariota on offense.
All right.
I think Roy the only one could do, unless you go with McLaurin breaking a team record. But I'll go with Mariota. And Sanders still, I really like what we have in him. I got to give him the game ball on defense.
Yeah, I was going to go McLaurin on offense and Sanders still on defense.
I was going to go McLaurin because of the team record. And we shouldn't skip over that. That is 13 touchdowns in a season after this team's been around for almost a century. And look, we've had a bad run at wide receivers lately, but there's a lot of Hall of Fame wide receivers in this team's history. So that Terry's now exceeded the Art Monks, the Charlie Taylors on at least one single season record. It's very impressive.
And to be fair, it was a different time back then, but yes.
It was, especially if you're going back to Taylor, but the posse, there were some, in the 91 team, there were some big time receivers making a lot of yards, a lot of plays.
It's impressive. He deserves at a minimum.
Very impressive.
An important game ball like the one coming from us.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Terry's my guy there, and I'm going to go with Chin. Sanders still had a great game too. I'm not knocking that. So, but I'm just to change it up, I'll go with Chin. I thought he had a couple good plays in this one. All right, let's move on. The playoffs. All right, I'm going to leave this up to you guys. Do you want to go over the playoff schedule first and then get into the Tampa game? I think that kind of makes sense.
All right, so I've got it all in front of me. Here's the schedule. Okay. And because this schedule, by the way, stays the same every year, in case people don't understand this, in terms of where they place the seedings on Saturdays and Sundays. Right. So the early game on Saturday is 4:30. It's Chargers at Texans in Texas, in Houston. That is on CBS/Paramount. The 8 p.m. Eastern game on Saturday is Steelers at Ravens. That's on Amazon Prime, so I won't be able to watch that. This early game Sunday is at 1 o'clock Eastern. That's Denver at Buffalo, again on CBS. 4:30. The 4:30 slot game is Packers at Eagles on Fox, and then the Washington game, which before anybody gets excited, the 6-3 always was on at 8 p.m. and Sunday last year too.
Right. They didn't flex this because of names.
No, it wasn't. It was just the setup. But that is on NBC, and then there's a Monday night game on ESPN and ABC, which is Minnesota at the Rams on Monday night at 8 p.m.
And I'm going to go on record saying I hate the fact that there's a Monday night play.
Yeah, I hate it too. I don't like it either.
They should be all Saturday, Sunday.
That's just a boon.
It should be 3-3.
It's just a boon to ESPN, and they have Amazon, and they need to do something with the game, and so
I know it's all about that money and time slot stuff, but I just think it's unfair to those teams, because then they have a shorter week. An even shorter week than the other teams.
Plus, I just kind of like the idea of getting the playoffs on the weekend. And
yeah. You want to go into Monday fresh.
I would be irritated if I was the Vikings and the Rams, because
I would be very irritated.
Yeah, you're on a short week.
Yeah,
especially if the Vikings win and they still got to travel back home.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good one. But there's some good games here. I think Chargers Texans to me feels very toss up ish. Like I don't see a strong favorite there, unlike Baltimore. I see Baltimore's going to decimate the Steelers, right? Same with Bills. Bills will just beat the Broncos easily.
Are we going to do this now?
Yeah, we're going to do this really quickly, and then we'll.
Oh, you want to? Okay, because I've got.
That was the idea.
Okay, so what I'll say here is, I did a deep dive on stats on this, like I haven't done the past couple of years. So first of all, what's interesting to me is the schedule these teams played. And I'm not going to go over all this data here.
Right.
But what I will say is that if you look at strength of schedule for these playoff teams, I won't. We could play the game, but let's just go over it. So Packers had the toughest schedule by opponents winning percentage. Then the Ravens, Lions, who is that? Rams, and then it goes down from there. Washington had the easiest schedule out of all of them.
Right. Chargers had a fairly easy schedule too, from what I've seen. Right.
Chargers were ranked 12th. The other one was the Eagles had a really easy schedule.
Right.
And the Bills did too. That group were the easy ones. And then, but in the hard ones, Chiefs were in the middle of the road.
Okay.
They were 8th. They played the most winning teams, but they ended up 8th because they played a lot of really bad teams.
Right. Strength of schedule is always tricky to really suss out.
It is, and I kind of struggled with what to do about this when analyzing the data on it. But let me just go over. I'm not going to go over all of this, but what I did, you can read about this later. But I looked at all the stats, the relevant stats for all these teams, and the bottom line is it came out that from a statistical perspective, the Ravens were number 1 overall on offense. And then the Ravens in order: Ravens, Lions, Tampa, Eagles, Bills, Washington, which is number 6. Packers, Vikings, Chargers, Broncos, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Rams, Texans. That is in the order of how more effective they were statistically. Now, what you need to do is apply strength of schedule to this. And so if you do that, you see that the Ravens had the second toughest schedule and were still number 1 in offense. That's impressive. Washington was last in schedule and was in the middle of the pack. The Chiefs is a weird outlier. I don't know what to make of the Chiefs. They were 15-2.
Right.
But they won games by a bunch of flukes. It was, they didn't score a lot of points. That one's kind of an outlier. That's offense. And then defense, the statistical rankings, Broncos came out number 1, then Eagles, Chargers, Vikings, Texans, Packers, Ravens, Chiefs, Lions, Steelers, Buccaneers. Washington was number 12, Bills, and then Rams. That was how the stats bared out on defense.
I'm surprised that Washington wasn't last, honestly, just by how their defense.
They were by some categories, but they had enough. They were pretty high in opponents' completion percentage. That boosted them up. Opponents' passing yards. They were last in rushing yards. Last.
They're pretty high on sack percentage.
And I did number of sacks, and they were 8th in number of sacks. And then points scored against, they were last in points. Yeah. So anyway, so that's the statistics. So I think what you can get out of this, from my perspective, is the Ravens both had great offensive stats and a really tough schedule, as did the Lions. So if you want to have two favorites, that probably ought to be your favorite. Ought to be your favorites.
I would much rather those two than seeing another Chiefs.
I just think the Chiefs are an outlier because they've got Mahomes. He's a Hall of Famer and all of that. You can't discount them, but statistically they don't match up well in here, and they don't come out very well in defense either. They were tied for 10th defensively. So that's my thought. I'm done. So Dave.
Actually, I thought the Chiefs had a much better defense all year, and I guess I was
amazed statistically it didn't shake out like that.
Yeah, misled on that one, I guess.
Well, you forgot that the refs are helping the Chiefs. That's all.
I think the most intriguing team in this entire playoff right here are the Denver Broncos, because the Denver Broncos are, they have a championship caliber defense in place. That offense under Bo Nix, the last 6 weeks, has been one of the better offenses in the league. If you want to talk about a scary team heading into playoffs, this is that team, and this is the team I think Buffalo did not want to face round one, because they are built to go in Buffalo. They are built to play in Buffalo. They have a good running game, a good offensive line. Bo Nix is a very mobile quarterback. He can do it with his legs and his arm. And defensively, Broncos can generate a lot of miscues and some turnovers too against Josh Allen. I could really see this being that one key upset of the weekend. I still think Buffalo wins the game, but there is one game that I think where the road dog has the best chance to win. It's Denver, in my opinion, on that one.
Buffalo's going to be an interesting one because it's going to be really cold in Buffalo during that game. It's going to be in the 20s, snowing.
Denver will be used to it, though.
Yeah, I mean, they're Denver's very similar, weather-wise.
They're built for it.
Yeah, you're right. You are definitely right.
Yeah, I mean, Denver came out, number one on my defensive rankings on this.
That could be a very interesting game if that somehow ends up an upset. All right, well, why don't we talk about the game that we obviously care about the most, which is Washington versus Tampa. I love the game for a lot of weird reasons. I like that this is the first team that Washington played all season, so it's literally a perfect measuring stick of how much they grew over the course of the season in a lot of ways. I love that we have this weird playoff history versus Tampa, Washington.
Every time they get to the playoffs, it's either always Tampa or Seattle.
Right. In some years, it's been both, which is odd.
Yeah, right.
It is weird.
Yeah. At least ever since like the early 2000s.
Since Gibbs 1 ended. Yeah.
1999, I think they played Tampa in, what was it, that second round and lost.
Yeah, with the muffed field goal at the end of the game.
Right. And then, Gibbs beat Tampa that one year with the Sean Taylor game. Yep. It's just so weird. And then, of course, the Heineke game versus Tampa was the last playoff game. So there's this weird
the Gibbs
history.
One was the only playoff game they've won since
Snyder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is very depressing. But let's not focus on that. It's just a weird, cool history between these two teams in the playoffs for Washington, at least. Tampa's won a Super Bowl or two in that time. I'm not going to care about that. But yeah, all right. So the Bucs, man, they have a very good offense and a solid defense, really. I know their numbers aren't all that impressive in some ways. Like, they don't have a big-time sack guy. They don't, no one's got double-digit sacks, right? They don't have a lot of turnovers, I don't think. I think they had 7 picks on the season. But Mayfield probably having his best season ever. 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, 16 picks. A great running back duo there with White and Irving. And yeah, they don't have a lot other than Mike Evans in the passing game, but a solid passing game, obviously, if they put up that many yards.
Yeah, but Mike Evans is a lot to have.
Mike Evans
had 1,000 yards every season of his career.
Right.
Well, don't forget about that young kid McMillan though too. He's come on the last several weeks. I mean, he is he's almost Godwin-esque really when you look at his play and how he's kind of a shorter guy compared to Mike Evans. Of course, a lot of guys are kind of shorter compared to Mike Evans, but he's a really good route runner. He's got a lot of speed, very good hands. He's a guy you can't look past. Right now, Marshawn Lattimore is trending to play in this game. If there is one game that Marshawn Lattimore really needs to be a part of, it has to be this game.
Oh, yeah. I think Washington is in serious, serious trouble if Lattimore can't play in this game.
Yeah.
Mike Evans is a nightmare. There is no one who can come close to being as physical as you have to be to cover Mike Evans, except Marshawn Lattimore. Now, I don't have a lot of faith that he can't not hurt his hamstring again.
Right.
It's not his fault, but I mean, it is what it is, I guess. To me, that's other than the standard, Washington's key to all these games recently is to limit their mistakes and penalties. Right. I think that goes without saying because they've done a horrible job of doing that. But putting that aside from football's perspective, to me, this game needs to be the focus of the defense needs to be we're going to allow anybody else but Mike Evans to beat us.
I understand where you're coming from. That I would also say it's focus on Mike Evans in the passing game, but you really also have to stop these running backs.
I get it. I mean, look, I get it. I mean, Tampa Bay is an outstanding running team. They're they average 5.3 yards per attempt. And yardage wise, they're fourth in the NFL. The 5.3 is second in the NFL, only to Baltimore. They're an outstanding rushing team. And if you look at, their running backs, Bucky Irvin's, 1,100 yards.
Yep.
5.4 yards per attempt. Rashad White isn't too far behind him, 613 yards.
Yep.
But it's really Bucky Irvin is the one that's had a lot of success. And I don't disagree with you, but if you have to pick somebody, I would pick Evans. That's the Hall of Famer. Right. That's the weakness. Washington isn't going to stop Tampa running. They're not. They haven't stopped anybody all year from running. They're not going to stop Tampa. So I think, and they've won games somehow despite that, but Mike Evans can kill them. So that's why I think they need to focus on Mike Evans.
I think that's fair. And, if Marshon Lattimore's able to be healthy, and look, it's like they put him in a tissue box ever since they traded for him. Let's be honest. You remember John Hall, the kicker that Washington had years ago, who he would kick like one kick and they'd be like, all right, he's hurt. Let's just put him aside for like a week. And then he would come out a week later and he'd kick maybe 2 more field goals and okay, that's good. We're gonna swap to another kicker. That's what they're doing with Lattimore, hoping that he's healthy for this playoff push, hoping that really you're keeping him for 2-3 years down the road is your goal, right? Like for the window. But I need him to play, man. I need him to be. Here's what I'm going to tell Marshon Lattimore. You're going to look at Mike Evans. If you see him on the field, you're going on the field. You're covering him. That's your only job. Just cover him all day long.
He needs to travel with Mike Evans.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. If Mike Evans is off, taking a breather, Marshon Lattimore can take a breather. Get some water. Get some Gatorade.
Yeah, right.
Hydrate.
I don't know if any of us really. I mean, I know the injury report. Let me just whip through the injury report here since we're doing this. So from Washington's standpoint, the DNPs on Wednesday were Zach Ertz, Clelin Ferrell, Dante Fowler, Terry McLaurin. However, Ertz, Fowler, and McLaurin will all just rest. And Clelin Ferrell's listed as knee/rest. Which means he has a knee, but the real reason they set him out is rest. So they're in pretty decent shape there. The limiteds were Tyler Biadasz, which is really good news, Jeremy Chin, Brandon Coleman, Jamison Crowder, Cornelius Lucas, and then John Bates, Jane Daniels, Marshon Lattimore, Frankie Louvu, Jordan McGee, Quan Martin, Colson Yankoff were all listed on the injury report, but full. Tampa Bay had 2 DNPs, Logan Hall, the defensive lineman, and Tyke Smith, the DB, but his was just a personal day. And then they had a bunch of limiteds, Levante David, Jamel Dean, Mike Edwards, Mike Evans was just a rest day. Caden Ott, Sterling Shepard, Justin Wirfs, who is their all-pro right tackle, or left tackle rather. That's injuries. I don't know. I don't know if we really. Have you guys seen any like unbiased reporters reporting about how Lattimore looked in practice? I mean, I really have to wonder.
I've seen a lot saying he was pretty much full participation, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the best I saw yet.
Let's hope that's true, because they're in serious trouble if they got to go out there and stick like Benjamin St-Juste and Mikey Sandersill and Mike Evans.
I'll put it this way: it was John Keim that reported that he was a full practice today. So if he says he was full practice, then he absolutely was. But obviously, of course, you're going to be careful on what he does going forward. That hamstring is a very tricky issue. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping it's a tissue box situation. They're just being safe.
I don't want to discount what you said earlier, though, Alex. I mean, they do have. Tampa is a serious running team.
Yeah,
They really are. And Washington's been atrocious, obviously, against the run. They're one of the worst run defenses in the league. It's not going to go. It hasn't gone well. It's not going to go well. Nothing's going to change this week that has been happening in the last 17 games. No. It kind of is what it is. I just mean, I think Evans is a guy. If somebody's going to really make a huge difference, it's probably going to be him. They've somehow overcome running games. But a guy like Evans, man, it's just bad news, bad juju.
I mean, their issues in the run game stem from you have high-paid defensive tackles who don't fit your scheme at this point. And I like John Allen. I've really liked John Allen his whole time here. I like Daron Payne, but they do not fit what Dan Quinn does. I don't know why, but they just don't. It seems like so.
Well, I think I've talked earlier in the season before with Lattimore. You have that Lattimore effect. If he is healthy and he goes 1-on-1 with Evans and he's effective with that, that at least brings a little more help down into the box with Jeremy Chinn. Jeremy Chinn can spend a little more time, help defend against the run. But man, when you have two defensive tackles that are paid like they are and they can't do anything against the run, I mean, there's only so much Jeremy Chinn can even do for that matter.
Right.
The safety is not the primary,
No, you're right. Run. Yeah. No, you're right. But that's where if at least one of your defensive tackles are at least doing their job and keeping contained.
Yeah, Dave's dying and choking.
Dave's dying. Right. Oh, all right. We're gonna fill in. We're gonna fill in. Dave, get some water.
If you can at least keep someone contained and have some push in that line, you don't have to worry about an offensive lineman taking on that linebacker at the second level as they're preoccupied with the defensive line. That's what helps free up your safety more because now he can roam and take advantage of certain gaps or whatever. But even that's even limited. But it's just, I mean, Bucky Irvin is just going to be really good.
But I just don't think you can leave. I wouldn't even want to leave Lattimore 1-on-1. He does need to travel with them, but I think they need a shade of safety over to him too. Yeah. You cannot let that guy beat you. I would do that in the beginning and see how it goes at a minimum. And that would take away, that would take away from what you're suggesting. But until Lattimore proves he can contain Mike Evans, I would do it.
I get you, but right now you may have to roll the dice because you have no other help on that run. And if Bucky Irvins gets going, this game's over. I mean, I know how important Mike Evans is out there. I get that. I mean, at least we do a good job on getting to the quarterback on the most part. We can get pressure on Mayfield, maybe get him out of sync a little bit. But, I mean, if you don't lay the wood on Irvins early and a little bit at least, and who else is going to be really freed up to really do that besides Jeremy Chinn coming up in the box? Because, our defensive tackles aren't going to do it.
There isn't an easy answer to this question.
You're right. You're absolutely
not
right.
With the roster as it is.
Yep.
It's the thing that I think we've heard Dan Quinn talk about it early in the season. The chess match of like getting the right players in the right spots. It really is fascinating when you get down to a game like this, and it's like you just don't have a guy for this, and I don't know how you beat that or how you solve that. You can't just say, "Hey, Frankie, just tackle the running back every time." Like that's your only job right now.
Famous last words.
Right.
Please tackle the running back.
Every down, please.
If you hadn't told me that, I wouldn't have wanted to tackle the running back.
Yeah, it's not that simple, unfortunately. All right, let's talk about our offense here in Washington versus this defense. I kind of said this earlier. Their defense, they have a lot of fumble recoveries, I believe, but they don't have a lot of turnovers in general. But yet they've played consistently very well. Now, is that partly look at their division?
Yes.
Look at, Steve with a quick yes.
What is? It absolutely is. Look, the games in which Washington's offenses look great have been against weak opponents. Right. And they've beat up on the teams they should beat up on. The Eagles game's a bit of a wild card, but remember Jalen Hurts wasn't in there.
Sure.
Against the better teams have been the games in which Jayden Daniels has not looked as good. I think you kind of have to some respect, throw out the first game against Tampa because the offense is so limited. If you remember, the play calling it was really, really limited play call. Yeah. Well, it was his first game. I understood why they did it. That's not the offense you'll see in this wild card game. But the simple fact of the matter is Washington's offense has not been nearly as effective against the better teams. That's why I was saying earlier how the strength of schedule actually is important here.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You're right about that. And Tampa, look, I know strength of schedule is a big thing, and you did an actual breakdown. I look at Tampa's strength of schedule, and it doesn't really wow me either. Like they've had a couple big games, but Obviously the NFC East and the NFC South played each other, so like there's a lot of games you can cross-reference between these two teams. Yeah, I just don't know. Tampa's running defense has been really good of late, right? The last few games. And I guess they did okay against the passing game, but they played the Saints, the Panthers, Cowboys before Washington. These aren't high-powered offenses right now that they've been playing either.
Right.
Washington's probably the best offense they've faced in the last month.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, again, Washington has played the Saints and the Panthers this year as well.
Right. I know. I understand that. That's what I was saying. There's been a lot of schedule overlap between these.
Well, in terms of Tampa, they played 7 winning teams.
Mm-hmm.
They won 4 of those games. They won 5 road games, which is obviously a home game for them, and they were right in the middle of the pack in terms of overall winning percentage at 7th.
Mm-hmm.
That was how their strength of schedule comes to check out.
Yeah.
And so it's in the middle, all of that's in those 7 winning teams. That's about what everybody else played.
Yeah.
And Washington was lower, 5.
Right. And Washington only won, what, 2 of those? 1 of those?
One.
Yeah. The Eagles game.
Yeah.
Eagles. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, this game could easily be a toss-up in the end. Why don't we kind of give our...
Well, before you do that, so Vegas has got this as a 3 points.
Right.
Bucks. But it's Bucks -3, which is a very narrow gap. The home team usually gets 3 points. Right. And so what Vegas is saying is it's a toss-up on a neutral field.
Right.
Because Washington has shown a tendency to not quit, with the exception of a couple of the better teams. They've obviously had some fantastic finishes. They did last week against Dallas. They've done it repeatedly over and over again. And so I do think there's a bit of a intangible plus with Washington, because it's not all stats, okay?
Right.
If Jaden Daniels is on, they have a tendency to outkick the coverage, so to speak.
Yes.
And so that could happen here. And so I think that's probably the reason why Vegas thinks it's essentially a dead heat, slight advantage to the home team. That's kind of the way I see it. To me, Washington's offense is a good offense, but it's been noticeably less against playoff teams.
Yep.
And the other thing is, I mean, they scored 36 against the Eagles. Weird game, but then it's 23-30-20, against the Saints, Falcons, and Cowboys.
Yep.
So, they haven't been running the score. They ran the score up this year against the Bengals, Cardinals, Panthers, Titans, and the Eagles, which is a wild card. 38, 42, 40, 42 points. All bad
51
teams.
Against the Saints.
Oh, did I miss that one? Sorry.
First matchup, it was October 13th, which is like
no.
He was talking Washington.
I'm talking Washington.
Tampa. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Now, the teams that they really didn't do well on offensively, the Saints, week 15, Dallas last week, the Eagles in week 11, 18 points, the Bears, which is weird and an outlier, in week 8. The Giants in week 2, 21 points. And so they've been off and on, which is football, okay? But I just think the intangible cannot be ignored in this game.
No, you're absolutely right. All right, well, let's give our predictions.
Okay.
And we'll go from here. So I'll go first because I've been out for a few weeks, so I'm sure it's my turn. I'm gonna predict. I'm going optimism here, guys. Washington's gonna win this one. I think this is our first playoff win in a long, long time, 2004. So that's 20 years almost, or exactly. Washington gets this one. It's going to be close. It'll be like 28-21 kind of win in Tampa.
Okay. Dave?
I'm thinking about this the last couple of days, even some of the numbers I was bringing up for the column I'll be doing this week. And, I know Tampa Bay has been pretty strong against the run, but when I look at their schedule, the last 7 schedules have Carolina twice and Raiders and all them. I'm thinking, well, they got a good run defense, but one thing they haven't done great against are mobile quarterbacks. Yeah, they shut down Hurts and Philly. I think that was more of an aberration than anything else. When Philly was still trying to figure themselves out. But against Bo Nix had a good game against them. Lamar Jackson had a Lamar Jackson game against them. I think the mobile quarterback they struggle a little bit against. And Jayden Daniels, he's more than just a running quarterback, as we've known. He's a guy that can scramble. He can go through progressions. He can make the accurate throws. He can throw it at all levels of the field. I think Washington, of any matchup they could have had, this is probably their best matchup of the weekend in terms of what their passing game and what Jalen Hurts and what Jayden Daniels can do as a quarterback and as a runner combined. As long as they can figure out a way, again, a few key stops, which is weird. This defense does get some key stops in games, which is giving Jayden Daniels and that offense a chance to get back on the field. And I think we get that. I think Baker Mayfield will make a mistake or two here and there. And I think that we will squeak this one out probably a 26-23 type game.
Washington's going to lose this game. I think the Buccaneers get this 32-27-ish. I don't think Washington matches up very well with this defense. And I think, Mayfield's been on a tear. That's not going to help. But I'm scared of what Mike Evans is going to do to this defense. And they're just Tampa's way too good in the run. It's not going to go well in that regard. And that's not to say it's not going to be close. Not to say I could be wrong, obviously, because again, Washington's pulled out some crazy games this year. But it's in Tampa. Sorry to say this, but I think the Buccaneers win 32-27.
Okay.
All right. Before we wrap up the show, because we still have 10, 15 minutes left.
Well, we didn't do predictions. You want to do predictions for the playoff games?
Oh, for the other one?
We kind of glossed over. We sort of did it out of order.
Okay. Well, we'll do that real quick, and then we'll get into the coaching carousel. All right. Let's start with January 11th, Chargers at Texans, 4:30, first game.
Okay, so the Texans have been really hit or miss this year. C.J. Stroud has had problems. He's in his own head a little bit, I think, in year 2 malaise kind of. Not that the Chargers are great, but I think the Chargers are probably going to pull that one out.
Dave?
Yeah, I think right now the Texans offense has been struggling. Their running game has been so-so. C.J. Stroud has just kind of fallen off quite a bit. He definitely playing a sophomore slump. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to get this team ready. Herbert, I think, has a bit of a thing to prove right now, and I think they pull this game out as well. Chargers.
All right, let's call it a sweep. I agree. Chargers. All right, next game: Steelers at Ravens.
The Ravens are going to take this.
I think this is the one blowout of the weekend. I think the Steelers get destroyed by the Ravens at all phases of the game. I mean, it's just the Steelers limped into the playoffs. Let's be honest. I mean, Russell Wilson has not looked good over the last month of the year. Their running game has been so-so to average at best. And I think T.J. Watt is still. I don't know if he's missed any games in the last month or not, but I know he's still been kind of bad on injury the last month or so of the year. So he hasn't been even 100% when he's been on the field. So I think this is Ravens in an easy game.
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson has something to prove in the playoffs.
Yes.
Yep.
We've all seen the history of it, and I think he's going to get it together at least in this week. And I think the Ravens take care of business.
Yep. I think we're all in agreement here again. Baltimore probably wins this one handily. All right, not week 12. On the 12th, Broncos at Bills is the first game. And I'm just going to go, I'll say Bills. I'm going to be quick about it. I think the Broncos have had a good season, but I think Josh Allen's going to, he's an MVP candidate for a reason right now.
I think the Bills are going to be scared in this game come down the fourth quarter, but I think Josh Allen will ultimately take the game over, and I think they just barely win this game over the Broncos because their defense is just very good.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. I'm not a huge Josh Allen fan in terms of my view of his abilities necessarily, but I think it'll be a tight game. I think Denver's better than people think. They did blow out the Chiefs last week. Yes, the Chiefs were laid down and died a little bit, but they still blew out the Chiefs.
Yep.
So I think Buffalo. I agree with Dave. I think Buffalo will squeak this one out.
All right, Packers at Eagles. This might be more of an interesting one.
Especially, do we know if Jalen Hurts is going to actually play?
That's what I'm trying to find out now. He made a return to the practice field on Wednesday for the first time since suffering a concussion.
Okay,
that doesn't mean he's cleared to play in the game, though.
Yeah.
Concussion protocol
points the right direction. Yeah, our fans know the protocol is. If you're listening to this show, you know how it works.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna say, even if Hurts plays, he's not played for a while now. He'll be a little rusty. So I think the Packers edge this one out, guys. That's where I'm going.
I was looking at an Eagles winning this one.
Mm-hmm.
But I was talking to a guy at work, and he said if Hurts plays this game, we're going to lose this game. And he explained exactly what you're talking about with that. And when he has that kind of time off, because he's not the best of passers, he has to be in a rhythm, and he hasn't played in 3 weeks now. I actually think that this might be the upset of the weekend right here. Not because the Packers are a better team. I just think Hurts makes some critical mistakes because he's trying to get his footing back. And
also, the Packers are a good team.
They are a good team, and I think Jordan Love right now has got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because he's been kind of on a bit of a I want to say hot seat going down the last month of the season. I think he's played pretty well, but some people think that he's not primed for this situation. So
right.
I'd love to be the contrarian and pick Philadelphia just because it would irritate the people who are listening right now. But I can't get past what you're saying about Jalen Hurts coming right after he comes back. It's questionable. That's true. And the Packers have played a really hard schedule. They played a lot of good teams. And I think
they're in a tough conference, man.
Yeah, they are. And I think they are better than people appear, and I think Jordan Love is getting it together. So I wish I could pick. I want to pick Philadelphia so bad in this, but I got to go with the Packers in an upset, in a squeaker.
Okay. All right. Last one. Vikings at Rams.
Yeah.
we got to find one where we can disagree, guys. Vikings at Rams.
Oh, the Vikings are going to win in a going away. In this.
I think the Vikings are rather pissed about what happened last week, and I think they're going to take it out on the Rams.
I think they're embarrassed. Yeah, this isn't going to go well for the Rams.
All right, so we're all going to be right or wrong together on all these games here. I guess Vikings, because look, they're
pick the Rams anyway. Pick the Rams just to be different than Alex.
All right, fine. I'll be the contrarian. I'll pick the Rams.
It's usually my role.
Yeah, let's just have fun with it.
And watch. And watch the Rams will win, and I said, "See, I knew this from the get-go. You guys should have listened to me."
I won't do that because I won't even remember who I picked.
I know, me neither.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about this last week too. Who did I pick? Philadelphia? I can't remember.
Yep. Exactly. All right, let's talk about these head coaching vacancies. There are 6 teams that have now fired their head coaches as of today. And, there's the whole Black Monday thing. It sounds like Dallas won't fire McCarthy, but he's in this weird situation. When's the last time you remember a coach actually playing out that final year of a contract like this? It's been
Dallas
a long time.
Dallas refused to let him interview for somebody this week.
The Bears. Yeah.
Yeah,
Bears.
Which tells you that they want to keep him. So I think
I guess so.
Unless they want to try to get a draft pick from the Bears.
Yeah.
I don't know. They refused to let him negotiate,
Right, and the Bears could just wait until the 14th when his contract would be up, in theory. But if Dallas is trying to extend Mike McCarthy, then let's assume he's staying in Dallas. So your 6 teams: Patriots, Bears, Jaguars, Jets, Raiders, Saints. Those are the 6 head coaching vacancies. I just wanted to hear from you guys kind of where you put these vacancies.
I would put the Bears first because you got Caleb Williams there. You know, he had a weak coaching staff, weak team around him, but he's still the number 1 overall draft pick. He's still got a ton of talent. He's raw. I think a coach could come in and mold that guy. And so I think that's number 1. And then you got to go, to me, Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence maybe hasn't panned out what you know, to be the next, superstar, but he's still a quality quarterback. And so I think that would be my number 2. What were the other ones?
Pats, Jets, Raiders, Saints.
Pats, just no, that's a mess.
Pats are a mess, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think. I wouldn't go Pats. And there's a ton of expectations. Really hard place to go into is the other thing.
That's true.
Raiders, I mean, the ownership's ridiculous. And what was the Jets?
Jets
is also a mess. Yeah, Jets are also a mess.
So and Saints, you and I have talked many times about that.
Their
cap
salary
situation.
Cap is just crazy.
Yeah,
it's brutal.
Yeah, and they're stuck with Derek Carr forever.
Well, you could do worse, than being stuck with Derek Carr, but it's not a place I would want to jump into.
No. I saw David Shaw was actually going to interview for that one. I'm like, why would you do that to yourself, David Shaw?
He needs a job.
I guess. But, look, the Saints are not going to do what they need to do, which is you tank your salary cap and you, purposefully suck for a couple of years to get out of that cap hell. But they're not going to do it, and no coach is going to take that job on if you're willing to do that. It's a terrible situation.
That's true.
Yeah. What about you, Dave?
I actually think the Patriots are a prime job to take because I believe they got the number 1 overall pick. They got that solidified, right?
They do. Yeah, I believe so.
So they have an opportunity on either taking one of the top players in the draft in Travis Hunter. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I think the Giants. No, they don't.
No, I think the Giants lost that. Yeah.
The Titans had the number 1 overall pick.
That's Patriots are up there. It's a couple.
But either way, I think they are an ideal spot to be able to move back, grab some more assets, and start really building that team behind a young rookie quarter in Drake May. But I get what you're saying, Steve. It's kind of a, working for Kraft out there and kind of being in that situation right there.
Mm-hmm.
The Bears, I think, obviously will be number 2 on that one with Caleb Williams, and I think that's the one. I'm hearing Ben Johnson may not actually be interested in the Bears job because it's not where he wants it to be. Right now, I'm at a point where Ben Johnson just stay in Detroit, don't even go on. I mean, come on, stop it already. If that's true anyway. But I think the Bears to Caleb Williams. I mean, they have a solid defense out there. It's a young defense. And they have some offensive skill position players. I think that's number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Jets are definitely one of the worst jobs to take. They're just the Jets. Just like a guy who works at. It doesn't matter who goes there, who coaches there, who plays there. They're the Jets. They'll always be the Jets. Forget the Jets.
That was Washington up until.
You're right.
Yeah, but we kicked our owner out of the country. Their owner's not going anywhere.
Yes, that is true.
We didn't just get rid of our owner. We kicked him out of the U.S. entirely.
Right. He's forced into exile.
Screw that guy. I wonder if he's still floating around on his yacht.
I think he is. By the way, I got the draft order real quick. It is Titans first, Cleveland second, Giants third, Pats fourth, Jacksonville fifth, Vegas sixth, Jets seventh.
Okay.
And then Carolina, New Orleans, Chicago, which I think covers all the teams that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Just when you get to the top 10. All right. So in terms of my list, I think Jets would be the worst situation because of the Aaron Rodgers nonsense that you'd have to put up with. Then Saints, that would be second worst. Raiders, then I'm going to go Bears after that. Then I'd go Jaguars, then Pats. I think I like Drake May better than Caleb at this point. I think if you're looking at those 2 young quarterbacks and saying, who can I play with? Who can I fix? I'd go May. I would at least.
I'm not a huge fan. I don't know. Sorry.
I'm not a huge fan of either of them, but I'm taking him over Caleb Williams at this point.
I think Caleb Williams has too much potential if you just harness it right.
I think he has potential, but I think it's the mental aspect that worries me more with him.
Fair.
And then Jacksonville, mess of an ownership group, but again, you're talking about too Trevor Lawrence. Like, can the ship be righted around him? I don't know. Like, I don't think he's ever been the problem there. They've just had terrible rosters. Their owner terrible coaches, and their owner medals. Like, so if I were Cliff Kingsbury, if I were Cliff Kingsbury, I probably wouldn't go to the Pats because I think there's too much expectation. Like you were saying, there's still the Bill Belichick shadow, so that's one factor. But Jaguars would probably be better for somebody like him. But you know who's going to get the Pats thing? It's going to be Vrabel.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Could be that, yeah.
I think it makes too much sense for Vrabel to be there anyway.
And when you look at the mess the Saints are in, that's almost like they got to find a coach that just kind of wants to kind of get his foot in the door. He's not going to be a great coach because who wants to be in that hell that they have out there right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a how do we say if we are phrase it properly? But Trevor Lawrence, I think gets traded this offseason to a quarterback needy team, and I think they start anew with a new quarterback.
I was thinking that for a while myself, but
that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I was thinking that myself earlier this year, but then I looked at his contract. His contract makes him very difficult to trade because they just signed him to a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think they're kind of stuck with him unless you can work out some kind of backroom deal where he agrees to change the contract and all that kind of stuff. I don't know.
To me, that's super easy. I mean, Bears by a mile.
Yeah. All right. So we all have different ones, I think, overall. Or
somebody remind these two guys that I'm right. Please, out there.
Somebody remind Steve in 2 years when Caleb Williams is out of the NFL already. That we
out of the NFL? Are you crazy?
And Drake May is throwing for like 40 touchdown passes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Drake
exactly.
May is too inconsistent to do that. Don't worry, it won't happen.
Oh, I don't think he's going to be that good, but I think he'll be like just a guy, whereas I think Caleb Williams is going to go bust route right now is what I'm feeling.
I just think he's in a bad situation more than anything.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears do everything in their power to try to get Cliff Kingsbury to come up there.
Oh, I think they will. I'm sure that's their goal.
Yeah. I agree with you there.
Yep. If I were him, I'd rather go to the Jags, but I think
either that or even do what they can to convince Ben Johnson. I mean, look what Ben Johnson did for Jared Goff, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he made him do an MVP candidate out there. So
yeah, but Kingsbury coached Williams.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Ben Johnson if he becomes a head coach. I don't know if he'll work out or not. I know he's got a great offense and all that, but like that doesn't make you a great head coach. We've seen that 1,000 times.
Yeah, you've seen it 1,000 times in Washington.
Yeah, you have to be like a leader of men. It's a very different skill set than offensive coordinator. All right, that should wrap up this show, I think. On that note, and we will see you guys after the playoffs, and hopefully be talking about the next round and how Washington can somehow beat. I don't know who they'd play. It would be the number 1 seed probably. Right? They'd be playing.
First of all, either way, we're going to be talking about the playoffs.
We'll be talking about the playoffs, but whether it matters for us or not.
I mean, it depends on who wins. I mean, Washington's the number 6 seed, so presumably they would play the highest seed, which would mean they would probably go to the Lions.
Right.
But if the Packers win, then the Packers would go to the Lions.
Right. And remember, if somehow Washington and the Packers both can win this week and next week, then Washington somehow hosts the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
Don't hold your breath, but it could happen.
It could happen.
And if it does, like, Dave's going to freak the hell out because he'll have tickets.
I'll get priority for those seats.
Yes, you get priority.
I'll get priority.
And you'll have to take out a second mortgage.
Yes.
Yes.
Which means I'll be sitting on my couch over there watching it on that TV right there.
All right, guys. We will talk to you all next week.
All right, fellas. Later.
All right, later.